Hi, everyone. Welcome to the main meeting of PhillyPoSH. Myself and Lido and TJ actually just got back from the PowerShell Summit. Both Lido and myself today. Me on the red eye, Lido just recently, so I apologize if I stumble, mumble, or anything else. So I'm working with very little sleep. So today we have Boe Prox giving a presentation on PowerShell and Windows Software Update Services Administration. Bo's an MVP, Honorary Scripting Guy. Also, you've probably seen him on the blog, and also writes for PowerShell Magazine as well, and also has 2 chapters in the PowerShell Deep Dives book. So what we're going to do is we'll have a presentation by him. Depending when that's done, we may do a script club or have a few other things, or do maybe some discussions over the PowerShell Summit. But from there, I'm going to hand it over to Boe.
Right, thanks. Yeah, my name is Prox. I am presenting today on PowerShell and WSUS administration. And just a little bit about me. As he said, I'm a Microsoft MVP in Windows PowerShell. I've been in IT for about 10 years now. I've written some PowerShell articles on my own personal blog, as well as Hey Scripting Guy, PowerShell Magazine, and PowerShell.org. And as John mentioned, I had 2 chapters in the PowerShell Deep Dives book, one on WSUS and PowerShell, and one also on TCP Communication and PowerShell. And just kind of get a little refresher on WSUS and kind of what it is and whatnot. It's Windows Server Update Services. The current version is 6.3, and that's available in Windows Server 2012 R2. The version I'll be using is like 3.2 on Server 2003. Basic WSUS, it's used to push updates to servers and workstations, as well as supporting a variety of platforms to include Exchange, SQL, Forefront, System Center, etc. And depending on what operating system you're running your WSUS server on, or that you're going to install it on, there's different ways to install it. And I've actually written an article on Hey Scripting Guy to automate the installation of WSUS on Server 2003 and 2008. And the link below has the script download to actually download to run the installation. In Server 2012 and 2012 R2, you do that via the install Windows feature command line. I cover that in the Hey Scripting Guy article as well. There are a few options you can use to explore WSUS and approve patches, manage configuration, and all that good stuff. One option is, you can use the GUI, the WSUS Administrator Console, and you can actually install that in the same install file in 2003-2008 as you would WSUS Server. In 2012, you actually install it through the install Windows feature command line. Problem is, it's a GUI, so you don't have much automation involved with it, with the exception of configuring automatic approvals and a couple of email notifications you can send out when your server is synchronized with new updates, and a snapshot of your update statuses for your target groups. Reporting is rather limited. You do have some ad hoc reporting on servers or clients and their update statuses, and its failed needed, etc. Another option you can explore is the Update Services module, which this is the official Microsoft module for managing WSUS. Currently, there's only 12 command lines at this time in that module, but it does provide better automation reporting that you wouldn't get in the admin console itself. But it's only available in Windows 8 up to 2012 R2 only. So you're pretty limited with what if you're running basically 2003, 2008, you're more or less out of luck. And these are the command lines that are available at this time. The next option, and this is what I'm going to be covering during this talk, is the API, the .NET classes. This has great flexibility to explore WSUS. You can check out updates, clients, configurations, target groups, etc. It's pretty much wide open what you can look at and do with it. And you can report pretty much anything you want to on, client statuses, update statuses, configure your WSUS configuration, any synchronous histories, all that stuff. And of course, automation, you can set up, you can actually do automatic declining of updates if you know you don't need a specific update each time it comes out. All that.
Can you hear monitor the chat room?
And it's less complex using the API. It's more functional based, so it's a lot easier for someone to pick up and use. And these are all the available functions in it at this point in time. And it is something I try to update at least a few times a year, depending on any bugs found or any feature requests that are made during that time frame. On to what I'm going to be covering today in this presentation. I'm going to be covering basically how you can create an initial connection to WSUS and viewing the methods that are available in the object. Looking into the WSUS configuration, the events, and also kind of digging into the database just a little bit to see what's in there. Working with the clients and target groups, checking out the updates and doing some approving and declining of those updates, and spending a little bit of time creating and testing an automatic approval that can be used, as well as reporting on WSUS. So with that, we will get started. I'm going to be showing you how to load the assembly, depending on what OS you're running, making the connection, checking on the methods, and there are a lot of methods to go with on that. So depending on what OS you're using, if you're using 2012, then you have the Update Services module available, so you would just import the module, it'll automatically load the assembly up for you, and you're ready to go. If you're using anything below that, like 2003, 2008, or like a client like Windows 7 client or Vista, then you'd want to load the assembly up by itself. And you will need the admin console installed on that system to get to the assembly and to load it up. In this case, I'm in 2012 R2, so I just load up the module, and it's ready to go. To connect to the server, we'll be using the Microsoft Update Services .administration.admin proxy class and using the get update server method. There are a few ways that we can make the connection. We can, if we want to make a local connection to that system, we're actually on the server itself.
Hey, Bo, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Any chance you can make that just slightly bigger?
Yeah.
Just the text in the console screen?
Yeah.
Awesome, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, no problem.
Cool, awesome.
So you have the option, if you just do get update server and just in the parentheses, that is used specifically for the local, if you're on the machine locally and want to connect to the WSUS server, you use that. Otherwise, you can, if it's pretty much a basic installation, you can, on like port 80 or 443, depending on how you installed it, you can specify a server name. The Boolean is if it is a secure connection or not, and you just go that way. If you're using an odd port, like I think it's like 8530 and 8531, you would need to specify a port number here as well to make that connection. In my case, I'm using port 80. I'm not on a secure connection, so I'll make my connection using that. And we can view the initial WSUS object, and it's got, from here you can see that we on version 3.2.7600.256. We're on port 80. You can see the server name as well. The big thing will be the amount of methods available from this object itself, and it has quite a few to work with. Everything from finding computer targets to expiring packages to working with target groups, looking at configuration. A lot of different things to look at here. I definitely will be covering all of these, but we'll dig into a few of them. This is into the WSUS configuration and events portion. And in this one, I'll be showing you some of the configurations of the WSUS server, checking out the events in WSUS, as well as the synchronization history.
Hey, Boe, sorry again. We actually had a question from the chat room.
Sure, okay.
Question from the chat room is, do any of the commands that you're highlighting for WSUS, do they parallel, or do they also work with System Center config-man?
Not really for System Center. I haven't done too much with System Center, but I know that you can use WSUS Server 4, but from what I understand with System Center is that it's all managed by System Center, and I don't believe, and I can go back and double check and report back on that, but I don't believe it's in parallel with System Center.
Okay, we're good. If we have any more questions, we'll from the chat room, we'll interrupt. Sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely, no worries, man. I'm sorry about that. I should have said that earlier. So just stop me if there's a question, and we'll take it from there.
No problem. Cool. We'll let you take over again.
All right, man. So we'll be looking at the SUSDB database for WSUS, as well as using a script to actually perform maintenance on the database to ensure we have it running as smoothly as possible. So in this case, we'll be using the get configuration method to view the config of the database, of the WSUS server. And if we view it, a lot of stuff here, a lot of different things you can look at. Like you can tell support languages, whether or not we're using a upstream WSUS server. In this case, we are not using upstream. We're going directly from Microsoft updates. The port we're using, where our local content is stored at. In this case, it's on the D drive. And just a bunch of things you can look at and view and report on if you need to. And as far as what of those properties you can set, there are quite a few. And of course, you definitely want to be aware of what you're setting to make sure you don't cause any issues down the road. And when you do make a change, you just call the save method, and that will save your update, your configuration update, and you can move on with it. And up next, we're going to check out the update event history. And there's a few different ways, and it has a few different options you can use to view the update events. Commonly, I'll just use the date and time. Go back 5 days, and we can take a look at what's in there. And quite a bit's happened. We can see where we had a synchronization yesterday. We can see the stuff on the top. We've had some detections going on. If a client's downloaded anything, as well as if you've had any, if a client's had any updates installed, we can dive into that. And you notice it gives you the GUID of the computer ID. It's not very useful. Obviously it's not user-friendly, so what I'll show you later on in the next one is how you can decode that and actually pull an actual computer name from that. So it tells you any successful installations. It'll tell you if you've had any failures. It's a good way to look at stuff to see if you have issues with WSUS and you're trying to figure out what's going on. I can even tell if I approved an update, it downloaded a file for the update, and that's based on the update ID right there. I mean. So quite a bit of stuff you can do with this to review. Synchronization history is pretty useful. It follows the same pattern as the event history. You can specify a couple parameters for date and timestamps to go back on. I'll keep the same one at 5 days. And we can tell, if we've had any synchronization issues or anything that succeeded. In this case, I've had no issues in the past 5 days, or the past couple days for that matter. We can even manage synchronization. We can kick off the sync and have it go out. And while it's doing that, if I'm fast enough, we can tell that it's running by using the get synchronization status method, as well as seeing where it's actually at in the process. So it's on updates right now. And if I check on it again, it was completed. So it processed 6 items. If we actually go back, our synchronization hasn't updated yet, so it will update eventually to that. But as you see, it went out there, it did the synchronization. We actually were able to view the status and progress of it all during that time. And up next, we'll be looking at the database configuration. This is actually where your database is located at for WSUS. Depending on if you have it internally or externally on a SQL server somewhere, we can go and find out where it's at. In this case, I'm using the get database configuration method to call this. And I can tell that the server that's hosting the database is on DC1. Database name is susdb. It's not an internal database, so we're actually using a look at a little more information about the database, like its application name, what's going to, where it's coming from. And the actual database connection is done using the connect method. And now if we go back and look at that again, we'll see that we actually have a connection string now to show our connection. And now that we're actually in the database, we actually have a connection to it. We're authenticated, all that good stuff. Now we can actually look at and run queries against the database or even updates against it if we need to. So when there's we'll use the get dataset method, supply a tsql command. We want it to be text. We'll run it. If we look at it, it's not really much, not useful, right? So we have tables, we have apparently some data in there, but we don't know what it is just yet. So we'll go to the tables, go to the rows, and actually return back. In this case, we're looking at all the tables in the susdb database. And lastly, before we run another command, we need to make sure we actually clean up after ourselves and close the command. But that wasn't really too useful. I want to see some better information. So I'm going to go ahead, and now I know what tables I had, I'm going to go ahead and try to select star from the computer target table and see what we get. And now we can actually see the clients that are on WSUS, and as well as, and this is similar to what you would see, what you're going to see with the actual WSUS API when we try to connect to clients and view them as well. Those command. And I do have a script that I wrote a while back called invoke WSUS DB maintenance, and it takes some stuff that it was on the TechNet script repository before that. I think actually the Hey Scripting Guy put out there. And this just kind of wraps it around and lets you do it as a function, lets you do it without actually having to go into a SQL Server Management Studio and actually paste that command in there and run it and wait for it. You can do this from your own client if you have it available. And it just goes and does some indexing the database and some other clamps with it as well. Depending on, how often you do this or anything like that, it may take some time. I'm going to give it a shot. I need to actually call it first. I ran this last night just to kind of get ahead of it so that way it wouldn't take so long. Run it. And depending on the time, like it took maybe about 25 minutes, I think, last night for me to run it, or maybe 20 minutes, but today it shouldn't take as long. And eventually, as I go through and run those commands, it won't return anything back other than if you use verbose and I show what's happening in the background. It'll just return back a completed statement. So as I let that go, I'll move on to the next slide because that may take a little bit of time. So now we're back into the next part of the demo, which is actually working with the clients and target groups in WSUS. And during this one, I'll show you how you can actually query for the clients, find out what clients you have, adding and removing clients from target groups, as well as removing clients from WSUS completely, and removing WSUS target groups. And it's just good timing and completed. So we're done with that. And now we move on to the clients and groups. And using our WSUS object that we created way back in the beginning with our initial connection, there's a few different ways you can actually find your computer targets depending on what you're trying to do. One is through the get computer targets method itself, and this will grab every single client you have. And if I don't grab if I don't even specify what properties I want, you get a lot of different things. You get a bunch of properties. You can look at anything from the full domain name to the IP address to the OS description, the client version, the make and model of the hardware of the system, BIOS info. I mean, a lot of stuff you can look at here. And again, you have the target group IDs, but they're all GUIDs, not really useful again if you're trying to figure out what they are. And you can specify by target name. It has to be an exact match of what you're looking for. There aren't really wildcards with that piece of it. So if you mistype it, it's going to come back with a failure saying you can't find it on the database. If you want a wildcard type of query for specific systems, you can use the search computer targets method. And it's pretty much a like statement. You don't actually specify a wildcard in there, but it will treat as though there are wildcards on both the beginning and end of the string you put in to do the search. So if I just do C, it grabs anything that has a C in it. So even though I have the .com and the C's right here and the DC1C, it says, okay, I'm just going to grab anything that has a C in it. I don't care what it is. Another method, and this is actually part of the preferred method if you are wanting to do some good filtering for clients, is using a computer target scope. The target scope itself, you build out, but there is a lot of stuff you can use this with. And some of these I'll cover later on, but you can actually include, anything from your elapsing time, your target groups you want to look for, installation states you want to include. So if you want to find anything that has like failed updates or anything pending reboot, you can do that, and I'll actually show that later on. But This is like the equivalent of using like get child item and using the dash filter to actually just do all the filtering on the system versus taking all the data back and trying to pipe it through where object and do all that filtering. So in this case, we'll just leave it blank for right now, and we'll just find all the updates again. Since we left it blank, it's going to bring back everything. So now we can actually go, we're going to go ahead and find anything that hasn't been reported back in the past 3 months. And apply that to the computer scope. We can actually see that 3 months ago. So now we'll do a search, and this is a great way to find for any stale computers that haven't reported in for a while that need to be looked at. Now I have one that hasn't reported back. And this is actually one that I just made using register client method just for this demo. But yeah, if you have any systems you want to report on anything that's within 2, 3, 4 months or however long what your threshold is to before they're determined to be stale, you can use that, generate a report, and you've got a great way to find out what hasn't reported. Same with the sync time. You can do the exact same thing, look for anything that hasn't synced in WSUS in the past 3 months. Run it. And once it's done, it should come back with the same system. So you put those together, you can find a good way to kind of stay on top of your stale systems. Next, you can actually remove, and if you have stale systems, this is how you're going to remove those from the WSUS server. So let's go here, we'll go back here. So I'm going to remove my laptop from WSUS. We're going to actually save the output of the query for the computer into client. There it is. And actually, I want this one. It's there. So now, and in the actual client object itself, in that object, we have a method called delete. So I'm going to use that, delete it. It is gone. We can verify that it's gone by doing another search for it. And it's no longer there. Kickstart that to get it checked back in. And while we wait for that, it'll eventually come back. We'll go ahead and look at the computer targets groups that are available. And these are used, if you want to filter based on a type of, how you want to filter these when you do update approvals. You can specify different systems to different groups based on their requirements. And in this case, I've got the 2 default ones that will always be here are all computers and unassigned computers. Everything else is you build on your own. Unfortunately, it's not a good way to do a direct filter for a specific group. You have to get them all and then filter them out based on the name that you want. In this case, I wanted the all computers group. I wanted to check that out. And from the target group, you can actually go and actually find out what systems are in it based on the group by using the get computer targets method. So if I run this, I can tell that I have all these guys are obviously going to be in that group. And as you tell, my laptop came back, which is a good thing. So if you want to just find out what machines in what group, in a specific group, you filter for that group, and you then run the get computer targets method, and you have all those systems. And creating a target group is pretty simple. You can use the create computer target group method that's in our WSUS object. And if we do that, we're going to call it laptops. Verify, it's created. It's there. We know it's there. Just to further verify it, we now have our laptop. And now I'm going to take that group. I'm actually going to add a client to it. And you can't and when you're adding the clients to groups, you can't just specify the name. It has to be the actual object that is required for that. So in this case, I'm going to find my laptop again. Client, verified there. So then the group has a method add_computer_target. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to supply my client object into it. And then if I go and actually look for anything in there, I'll see that my client is now in there. And deleting a target group is just as simple as creating one. I do this on the group object itself and call delete method. It's done, and we'll verify that. Now we're down back to our original target groups that we had before. So moving on. Now we'll be talking about the updates. Everything from locating updates to actually looking at where the files are that are associated with those updates. Doing update approvals, doing some declining of updates as well. Now you can use the get updates method that's in the WSUS object. It can be pretty slow because it's going for every single update that exists in the WSUS server. There's tens of thousands of updates that could be on it. So that's kind of a last-ditch effort if you really need to find something. Otherwise, you can use the search updates method and basically supply some. That's actually not going to be right. So any text you want. You can do it off the security bulletin, off the KB article, off the type of OS, platform, etc. that you want to look for. I'm just going to go for 2012. And look at the updates. And we have quite a few updates. We have probably 47 updates, so quite a bit of stuff here. And the update itself, you have everything in the object that includes a description of what the update is, legacy name, KB, security bulletin, link to the actual KB, when it was put on the WSUS server, just a bunch of stuff here that you can look at, as well as if it's been superseded or not, its approval state, if it's been approved or not. So a lot of information here, some great stuff you can report on if you need to. So with that, I want to find out more about this update itself. I look at on the update object, I run the get installable items method. I can tell that it's languages, all languages, as well as that there are some files associated with it. So I'm actually curious about those files, what they are. So we'll go back here, dig a little deeper. We'll actually look at the files property on that and see what we have. And from here you can actually tell, when it was modified for the modification date, the actual file URI, where the file is located at, as well as the origin where it came from, the size of the file, and so a bunch of different stuff here. A bunch of great things if you, for instance, you have a file that photo install, maybe it isn't downloading properly, well, something of the nature, you can actually go back to the WSUS server, find exactly where it's located at, and actually, grab it manually if you need to do anything with it. And just like we had the computer updates, the computer scope, we have an update scope as well that we can use to further narrow down what kind of update we're looking for. And it's very similar to the computer update scope, computer scope. You have, your text include, you can sort by text, search for stuff, and then the same way as doing the search updates, you specify text, it could be anything, KB, bulletin, whatever, when it arrived, so you can actually search for anything within the past month that has been synchronized to WSUS. anything from failed installations to any pending reboot, anything needed. A lot of great things here you can use to do reports on. And if we want to dig deeper, we can actually find out what parameters we can set. And it's quite a few things. You can actually do the update target groups as well. It just requires you to call the add method and you actually have to add the target group object itself into that. You can't do anything with the names. And depending on what you want to use, like if the update states, we can look for anything that hasn't been approved. And you've got a few different changes. You can like not approved, declined. Typically, if you want to find out what you need, you go with not approved as your approved states. And then we go to the update installation states. We want to see what we have available for that. We have a few things. You have everything from a failed to install pending reboot, downloaded, not installed. In this case, I just want not installed. I want to find out what I need, what is awaiting to be approved by me. And if you recall, I mentioned arrival time and creation time. The arrival time is actually when the patch was downloaded to your WSUS server, and the creation time is when the patch was actually created by Microsoft, when they actually published it in WSUS. So I'm going to go back basically a month and find out what has been synced with WSUS and what has not been approved yet. So I have nothing that has been not approved since the last time. And depending on that, the binaries that's used only, because the not needed value sometimes may be different, and it depends if the not needed that would show up if it was true would not be accurate if you have the host binaries enabled. And sometimes an update may require to accept an agreement, license agreement. In the case of this one, it's not true. Let me go back to pull another update out so I can show you that. We'll go back here. In this case, it doesn't require any license, any acceptance, but if that were true, what you want to do is you would need to call the accept license agreement method prior to approving that update, so that way you can actually approve it. Otherwise, it'll throw an error saying it needs to be accepted. Moving on to the approvals, there is the .approve method for each update object. Depending on what you need to do, you specify an approval action that's install or uninstall, and you specify a target group. And the target group, again, has to be an actual group object. It won't accept an actual name for it. And if you want more things, like if you want to specify a deadline, you can specify that just by giving it a date timestamp. And just to fall back, what are the approval actions? You have install, uninstall, not approved, or all. So you have a few selections there. In this case, I want to, if you don't specify a target group, it's going to do the install at the all computers root group, and that will just filter down to everything else. So if we do that, it actually will fail. I'm sorry, because of course I didn't specify a target group for that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my target group, which is Windows 2012. Server 2012, excuse me. verify it's there. Now, one thing I like to use is I actually will create a hash table to make it a little bit easier to manage that. That way I've got all my target groups there. I just got to give it a name and call it good. So in this case, I have Windows Server 2012. And I have my object right there. So it makes it a little bit easier to manage the objects, and I can just use that as needed. So now I will actually approve this update. I'm going to approve it for that target group and give it the method that I'm going to use. In this case, I want to install. Not like that one, did it? Updates. Come through. There. I apologize for that. It always works in pre-test, and it never works in pre-approval action. Oh, it's reversed. I'm sorry. And now we have the approval. So what returns back is the basically approval object. It tells you when it goes live. In case it go live later tonight, it's going to pending state as it gets approved, and it will tell you who actually made the approval for that. Depending on if you use automatic approvals or not, that will be a different name. It will be it will be like, I think it's like WSUS admin, or it has a specified system name that we use to actually do the installation, do the approval. And same thing for here. If I have multiple groups here, I can give it multiple names. I can go through each update and do the approvals. And so if I go through and I will look at, make sure I have the servers in there. I do. So we'll go through and we'll just go through a couple of these. We'll go do a couple just to show. Depending on what's there, it may not have that specific group. Oh, it's depending on the right verbose. So it would go through and it would actually go through and install, go through all the updates, approve them, and make them ready for the installation. Now we'll go through that, and then we'll move on. And then declining updates is as simple as just doing the decline method on the actual update object itself, and really nothing to it. Typically, I just use the decline method and call it good. And it's been declined, and we'll actually use that later on when we look at doing some automated declining of specific updates. And speaking of automatic approvals, we're up to that now. We're going to show you how to query the automatic approvals, how to find out which ones you have, creating and removing those automatic approvals, and actually running one as well. So using our WSUS object again, we'll go through and list all of our rules that we have. And in this case, I only have two. I have the default one, which is comes with WSUS. It's there by default, and one I just made up just to have. And similar to the target groups and everything else, you can't just grab it by name. You have to grab them all and then filter for them. So I'm going to grab my random one. And we have that there. I can explore what that one actually has, like what it's looking for. In this case, this rule looks for inits and critical updates, security updates, service packs, and updates. We can look at the categories that were assigned to this as well. In this case, I'm covering like Windows Server 2003 to 2012, 7 and 8, SQL, and a couple other items. And if we want to see what this rule is going to actually do, it's going to approve only those type of updates on the server's target group itself. And creating a target group is a matter of using the create install approval rule method and giving it the name of the group. And we want to make sure we actually save that, the output, so that way we can use that to make edits to it and do some other things. And of course we can verify it's there. And for the categories, I want this to just be Server 2012 categories. So we'll use the get update categories method of the WSUS object and pull those. And we'll see we have those objects. And again, it requires an object. We can't actually just specify names. It will freak out on us if we do that. And we can't actually just do a set categories and just supply those objects. It actually expects an update category collection object type. So we have to go through and create that, and then we'll actually add the range of those categories into that as well. And once we have that, then we'll supply that category collection object into the new rule. And we can see that they're in there now. Do the same thing with classifications. We're going to look for classifications that match critical updates, service packs, updates, and security updates. Same approach with that. We're going to find all those objects that we need. We're going to create a separate collection specifically for update classifications. Add those in there, and then lastly, add those into our new approval rule and move on with that. Again, we got the same approach with the target groups. We have to figure out what we want, create the collection container for it, add the target groups in that collection, and then actually add that into the rule itself. Once we're done with that, we will go ahead and enable it. We will actually use it. Enable the rule, and then we're going to save it. Once you run it right away, instead of waiting for it to run, we'll go ahead and do the apply rule, and that will actually kick it off. And it'll go through and check all the updates that match its criteria and approve those based on that, on the specified target groups that we have listed. And depending on how much it's got to do, it may take a little bit of time for that. So that leads us into our reporting demo. So this is kind of what I enjoy the most about the working with the API in WSUS is the type of reports that you can provide to your leadership or to other folks in your shop to say, okay, this is what we have, what we don't have, what we need to do. And we can look at anything. We can basically provide reports on failed update installations, like if we've done we want to see, okay, what has had issues installing, where they're at, what updates. We can see any machines that require a reboot. If for some reason we missed a rebooting machine and it still needs it, we can find out what that is. Look at the actual update summary on WSUS. Find out how many patches are needed by what systems. Actually, audit approvals. We can go back and find out who approved what patch. In case someone got a little crazy with the approvals and approved something they shouldn't have. We'll find out who did that. And we can actually take everything we've done and create an HTML report on that we could send out an email to people, whenever, once a week, once a day, to see where we're at with our WSUS server as far as configuration and updates and stuff such as that. And that rule has finished applying. So if we want to find out what has failed and has been reported as being a failed installation of an update in WSUS, we're going to go back to our update scope. We're going to look at our installation states. We're going to use the failed. And then from there, we're going to look at our targets. And then for each one, we're going to call a method under each client object called getUpdateInstallationInfo per update. And that accepts the update scope that we created. And from there, it's going to see, okay, what updates on these guys have failed. And in this case, I don't actually have any failed updates, thankfully. And if it did, we could actually find out what update it was, its approval action, and all that stuff, and figure out, and go back and troubleshoot and find out what we need. Same for the pending reboot. We can look at any machines in the computer scope that has a pending reboot using this. And in this case, I also want to know what updates are causing that pending reboot. And with the same method, we're going to get our targets, and we're actually going to use our computer scope to pull those machines. And for each one of those, we're going to go ahead and find out, okay, what update is actually causing this. And then for each update, we're just going to iterate through it and find out what we have. In this case, I've actually got 3 updates that have installed on my system, but I haven't rebooted it yet. So it's reporting back saying, hey, you've got these 3 things, you need to take care of them. And let's see what we have. So we've got some 2003 updates that we just need to finish our cleanup on and reboot the system to clear that out. And we can look at the update approvals, find out what has been approved, in the past. In this case, we'll go back just for the past month and see. And we'll find out who updated what, who approved what, and we'll see what we have. And the actual get update approvals method, it takes an update scope that we can use. So we go back to our update scope, create that one, specify our date range. And then we'll come back through and find out what we have. I think I want to keep that. And of course, depending on how far you go back, it will depend on how long it takes to actually go through and find that. So we'll have 18 in the past month. That's what we have. So you can see in the past month, I have updated all these updates. Some of these, and this is actually the WSUS server name. This is what's used when you do the automatic approval rules that you have set up when those actually run. So you will see that there, and you can tell from there that, okay, this was done by an automated method, whereas this one was done by an actual user who decided to update Flash Player on Server 2012. And we can actually dive into if we want kind of an overview snapshot of our WSUS server and what each computer needs as far as updates go, anything that's failed, pending reboot installed. And we use that calling the get summaries per computer target method on the WSUS object. Has a few things we can look at. We can supply the update scope, and the computer scope for that. So in this case, I'm just gonna use the default scope. Nothing added in there. I just want everything. And we're gonna go through and see what we have. So from here we can show that this guy has a couple updates downloaded, 2 need to be installed, 3 pending reboot. These guys haven't checked in yet, so they won't have any report on just yet. There may be just a little more time for that, but from there you can tell, depending on the size of your system, you can find out what you have, the status of each client, find out what needs to be installed, what's failed, all that. And on the reverse side of that, we can actually look at the updates and use a similar approach using the get update installation info per computer target and find out what updates needed by how many systems. So in this case, we're going to look for this KB, and we're going to see what we have. And for this update, for this KB, we have 1 system that needs the computer, that needs the update, I'm sorry. We have total 3 systems, only 1 needs it. And calling the get summary of that update itself, we found out that we don't know what system it is yet, but we can definitely dive in deeper and look at it. And from here, it's nothing useful here. We have all these GUIDs. We don't know what they mean. We know there's a target group ID on this somewhere. We know there's a computer target ID and update ID, but it's almost impossible to find out what it is we're looking at. So we need to go through and clean up a little bit on what exactly we're looking at here. So in this case, for that update, we actually see we have 1 that was installed on DC1 under the all computers target group, whereas these 2 guys, we don't know yet because they haven't checked in yet. And now we're going to report any updates that have not been approved, have not been installed, and see how many actually we have. In this case, we have nothing at this point in time. Everything's been approved that we've needed. So if we were to, and if we did have that issue where we had updates that needed to be approved and installed, in fact, we can go through and we can actually force, we'll do client update just to force it. Go back here and we'll search for updates. Back to the very top one, and we'll go ahead and say not approved. That will work too. So we'll go ahead with that one. That will make it easier for us. Very difficult. So essentially what would happen is we go through and we actually dig in deeper and find out exactly what updates those were, go back and find the name of the updates, as well as seeing what we have available. And the last one we're going to look at is kind of another overview of updates. Back we go approved. Which we can look and see approved has still. So now we have two that we know are approved that are non-installed and needed. We'll go ahead and dig a little deeper into it. Kind of similar thing we had before. We can see where we have update count, what's needed by the computers, as well as that, but we need to find what those updates are. And in this case, we have an IE8 update as well as a .NET framework update that needs to be installed still. So, and this is the other way to look at it. This way we can actually look at what updates are required by how many systems or what has failed. And for that, this is a great way if you get essentially a tasking to report. I need to know how many systems need this security bulletin or this update. You could take this, you could actually go in and go ahead and add the text includes of the update scope and give it the bulletin name, give it the KB name as well, and then you can run a report on that and find out exactly what you needed for that, what's needed, and report back on the status of that. And a couple of the scripts I want to show. This is one that I wrote. This is actually what we use to decline Itanium updates because we don't need those in our shop and we don't need to worry about those actually clogging up our system. So we go through and have a script that runs a scheduled job, usually once a week. It goes through, it connects to the WSUS server, looks for anything that is not approved that has Itanium in it, and I also want to find that may have been approved accidentally by anyone, and make sure that I actually go through and decline those updates. The last thing I want to show is, depending on what you do, I've shown you the different ways you can report on WSUS, do updates, all that stuff. The last thing you can do is you can take all that stuff and roll it up into a script and run it weekly, daily, and have it sent out. And basically, it just goes and shows you your states of your systems and where they're at of your entire WSUS configuration as well. Depending on what's there, and in the end, it tells you, the version. You actually have to go through and tell you, okay, this is the content path. This is how much space you have, how much is free. Your last synchronization, whether or not it was successful or not. Where you're pulling your information from, if it's from a update server from Microsoft, or if not, where is it coming from, what server on your network, as well as your automatic pools, what you have out there, what you have set up for categories, classifications of target groups, where it's going. If you have any child servers, as well, your database information, where that's at. Finding out your statistics, how many machines you have, how many are considered stale right now, and all that, as well as by OS, what OS you have running. You can find your stale machines, take action on them, find out machines aren't actually assigned to anything at the moment, and assign those to a target group so that way you have a better scope of where you want these updates to go to. Pending reboots, update statistics, what you have, total updates on your system, what's needed, what you decline, if you need files, any installation errors. If you had any install errors, what updates are causing those, and what machines it's happening on, as well as your target group statistics. How many empty groups you have, how many total groups, and of those groups that are empty, what are they? So you can go back and say, okay, do I need these? Do I have use for them later on as well? And so I'm going to go back to my one module I had that if you guys want to check out, it's on Codeplex. It's PoshWSUS.codeplex.com. Not to be confused with the update services module. Let me know what you think about it. If you have any bugs you find in it, any features you want to see added with it, I definitely check that out at least once a week and try to determine what I'm going to do to update it in the future. I have read a few articles on PowerShell and WSUS as well if you want to check them out. I've done quite a few on Honorary Scripting Guy. I've done one or two on the PowerShell Magazine, and I've done a fair amount on my own blog itself. Again, thanks for having me, guys. I hope you guys have learned a few things on that, on doing WSUS management with PowerShell. And again, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Bo.
Yep.
So actually, I have a quick question. So you're currently using the stuff you demonstrated in your environment at work now?
I am, yes.
Okay. How else? I mean, how large is your WSUS environment? Like, does this scale well for what you're trying to accomplish?
It does. We've actually got a couple different networks, and we pull from we don't pull from Microsoft Update Services. We actually pull from a different update source.
Okay.
And so, like as far as the H10 report I have, it goes out weekly, and we kind of use that to kind of track, where we are with updates, and if we had any updates get installed that are in. And it's been useful, especially for like failed updates. We've been able to locate those and troubleshoot those and get those resolved hopefully. And as well as if we've done a patching cycle, what machines did we miss rebooting? Because I have another tool I have called PoshPAIG. It's a UI that you can actually use to remotely install updates on systems. So we use that, and so sometimes they may get missed during the install. They may not get rebooted when they should have. So we can go back and actually say, okay, we need to get this guy taken care of.
Cool. So between that PoshEventUI and this, so you're doing like a full orchestration of all your updates then?
Yes.
Awesome. Now, I guess the question is, did you guys have an issue with any sort of like deployment software beforehand that made you go down this route, or is this more about I did this cool thing that I can use in the company and like doesn't cost us a dime?
Yeah, the PoshPAIG was it was exactly that. We wanted a way where we could basically patch a bunch of machines in a short amount of time, and without having to remote desktop into a machine and having to go through and install that way. And we didn't want to deal with deadlines because we didn't trust that it would reboot on time. So we used that to actually we have 4 or 5 guys going through and just hit their chunk of servers and just go through and do the audit, find out what's actually out there, needs to be installed, validate it, and then do the install, and then reboot, go back, audit again, verify, and that's pretty much it. And then the module for PoshWSUS was more of, hey, I don't see a WSUS module for PowerShell yet. I'm going to go ahead and make one and for the community and go from there with it.
Cool. I wish I actually had some of this knowledge before when I worked at my previous company when I was doing all like the patching by myself. But I love something like this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been fun. It's definitely proven to be pretty useful, especially for our shop, as far as just trying to get a grip on the updates and making sure we don't forget anything. It definitely helps out.
Cool. Anyone else have any questions or anything? All right, cool. We're good then. I'm not sure if you want to hang on. I think we're going to see if anyone has any script club stuff. If not, I think me and Lito will probably do some talks about the summit and some stuff.
Okay.
So feel free to hang around. If not, then thanks again for presenting for us, and I'll probably send you an email later just to get your address so we can send you the thank you package.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Definitely stick around.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
You feel free to unmute yourself when you want to. Does anyone have any thing they want to discuss? Any scripts or anything they want to go over? They want to talk about to the group or anything? No worries. Brain said, yeah, I totally agree. So then I guess we'll just do some discussion stuff. Actually, I'm actually put Lito on the spot first. I missed that one session with the Modad Manifesto and the whole open source PowerShell thing, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. And feel free to bring it up on Twitter or anything else here. Just need to bring up. Actually, no, we'll present on our desktop then too as well.
I think I can.
Or unless you want to do directly from your, you want to presenter on your machine?
No, that's cool.
Okay.
Let's get through that.
Share desktop. All right, now let's. Once it comes up, yeah, feel free to go like the whatevers.
The whatever.
Let's bring it up to one. I missed that. I was in a different session, so we can see what actually came about that.
So Bo, if you're still there, thanks so much, man, for presenting. This is Lito taking over here.
Oh yeah, for anyone who doesn't, we do it for a year and a half every month. Usually right around this time, you can see attendance dip because the weather gets nice. It's going to be extra dip. Usually during the winter, we actually study this hard. Maybe getting one usual type of speakers. But yeah, we all record all our meetings. We try to put them on our YouTube. We'll post Bo was kind of actually give us all the scripts he showed earlier and his slide deck, so we're going to post that as well. Just PhillyPoSH.org, and we'll have the whole blog post at the time.
Yeah, so towards the end, I think it was the second to last session, Jeffrey Snover presented on revisiting his Monad Manifesto.
Anyone has mentioned Jeffrey as lead architect for PowerShell?
Yeah, he's the lead or chief architect of Windows Server and System Center Data Center.
Yeah.
And the architect of Windows PowerShell. So basically, Jeffrey did a revisited the manifesto, what it meant, what they achieved, how they got to where they are today, and then his vision for things that are coming down the road, what they see, what he sees as important. And there was no real promises made or anything concrete, but just ideas about what they're looking at. And I thought that slide was it shows you what direction the team is working on. Obviously, I think the message was DSC, DSC, DSC. If you've not heard of desired state configuration or haven't had a chance to play with it at all, I highly recommend you do, because I think it is just like remoting was back in V2. DSC is a major pivot point for PowerShell.
That seems like a format system center is accurate.
So
obviously without a lot of the other features, but for
the key design goal, I think, was that, at least the way Jeffrey described it, was that there's so many of these configuration management applications that have existed throughout time, and they've always tried to take input from, make accommodations for various rule sets and things, and they've always failed. They've always tried to support the edge case, and DSC is an opportunity from Jeffrey's perspective, to say we're not caring about the edge case. We want this to be the tool to be as simple as possible to use. We cover 80 to 90% of the use cases, and we're not going to bend our tool to support edge cases. So at the summit, they also had a team member come up from the PowerShell team and demonstrate. I think it was for the first time.
As far as I know, it's the first time. So before you do that real quick, just from one thing to realize with DSC is that it's big in a sense where it has no reliance on AD whatsoever. So you can stand up a DSC server in a workgroup. You can stand up a DSC server without any Active Directory setup at all. It's completely independent. That's huge because System Center requires things like hooks and AD,
Yeah.
everything else. It's a large project to get up and running. DSC, is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of heavy lifting involved to get a System Center deployment in place, and then you usually have either one guy or a team of people supporting that thing. They're supporting the infrastructure to support getting your job done. And I think the team realizes that if they can leverage your existing knowledge of PowerShell and have you draft a configuration document that looks like PowerShell and have that run across huge swaths of machines, there's a huge value there.
And also the big thing is that Jeffrey Snover, now being the architect,
System-centered data center.
it's just a data center. That's going to be having a person who's helped create DSC part of SCCM now, or will be on there.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes for where SCCM is going to be in the next few years. That you're going to see a lot of that, what's currently in SCCM, more likely ripped out and replaced with DSC. And with that in mind.
Yeah, so the team demoed, they had somebody come up from the team working on the DSC team, PowerShell team, demo, drafting a single configuration document that's written in PowerShell and have that talk to a Windows host and a CentOS Linux box, configuring them, cross-platform. So when you think about Azure, I think a lot of the newer technologies that are coming out at a more rapid pace we're all benefiting from Azure, right? Like they go develop all these cool things, and they think about things in terms of scale, and then the small, medium business, enterprise, even large enterprise customers are going to benefit from those technologies as they get applied to that space as well. So this is, I think, them, conceptually thinking about how do we want to leverage managing giant, compute resources. I think, minimize the effort and risk to consume tons of computing. So you've got all these boxes out there. You don't want to click next to configure them. And in some ways, my experience with Config Manager was you have to do a lot of work to go edit the underlying XML of a task sequence. It is very GUI driven almost. So this kind of allows you can version control your configuration sets. You get one config document per box. If you're set up with a pull server, all the machines check in periodically. They get their configuration document. They do a test to see if they have what they need. If not, they apply it. And that's the model, at least. Yeah. Questions? So you as the author, there's DSC, what's called a resource, and in that resource you write essentially a resource is a module, like a script module, and you draft 3 functions: a get, a set, and a test. And so as an author of a resource, you have a function for testing, verifying that a reg key exists and has the data that you expect if you were writing a custom resource. So you would execute the test. If the value was something other than what was desired or specified in your configuration, then it would use the set to go apply whatever the correct value is. And then you can utilize the get to do reporting. I think reporting is probably one of the next version. It's a initial version of DSC.
Yeah, it's very developed. There's 2 ways to currently use DSC. Either you can have like a standard DSC web server, we'll just create the DSC, either you can have a server that hands out the configs, or you can just do it, you can just manually have drop the configs yourself. Set up a server, there's a web server, or as going with an SMB share. SMB shares, they're simple to do because it's just dropping the files directly and saying, okay, have this share open. The web server version also requires a separate IIS, but also comes with a compliance portion, which does all the reporting. Currently, you don't get reporting in SMB, and currently the reporting of the IIS version is, like, from what I understand, less reliable the way it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done there, but
which is atypical of Microsoft 1.0 product.
yeah. Yeah, this is just my opinion here, but I see a future version of configuration, SCCM, offering you the ability through like a GUI interface to design these underlying DSC configuration documents. So the way in which you interact with the task sequence in SCCM, where you're essentially manipulating an XML file through a graphical interface, you would do something very similar. I could see that being something that they might offer. ITIL? Does PowerShell support it? I don't know that the two really have anything. I mean, yeah, so you could use PowerShell to put, ITIL practices in place, right? So to manage your configuration change and everything, you could. Yeah. There was another very interesting thing that Jeffrey presented on, which was this concept of just-in-time admin. You missed it? Yeah. So Jeffrey gave a talk about security and post this post-Snowden world of how everybody is concerned about giving a contractor admin access to servers, and then they're taking secrets or data out of your company or out of your organization. So there's a toolkit called Just-in-Time, Just Enough Admin, where so they're offering a toolkit which essentially is some PowerShell modules framework that allows you to set delegated constrained endpoints, so that you could say, I want this admin to have access to these specific commandlets for this period of time. And so the one scenario example was given, like, imagine a trouble ticket comes into your help desk. Documented in the system is something that needs to be done to remediate that. You or a group of admins are assigned to that trouble ticket. Using the just-in-time framework, automatically you're provisioned access to restart a service on a series of remote hosts. You log in, everything's logged, you execute your actions, and you can only execute PowerShell scripts or commandlets that have been delegated to you. And then after a certain time period, there's like a configurable threshold, that access will go away. Everything gets logged, and I think another important takeaway from the trip was the amount of focus on security for the future of PowerShell and of the platform. So they're really considering a lot of opportunities to enhance and improve security and take constrained endpoints, one step further. So it's cool to see. Yeah, and then what I thought was interesting is Jeffrey talked about, you always need to have someone who, in the middle of the night may need to wake up in an emergency, execute some administrative task, you want to have the ability to override it. So it's that two guys turn the keys at the same time philosophy, where if you need to do that, there's a mechanism by which you can override this framework once it's in place. But I can't just go myself and do whatever I want. I need you to also mutually authenticate with me as a way to kind of prove that we're both acting appropriately, and it's not just one person. So it was kind of interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what that is on. Not only can limit the balance, you can minimize the parameters presented for each commandment, and you can actually minimize anything else you can do with DOS too. So you can whitelist and say, like the PowerShell, you can also do pull any exe or any file up. You can constrain it, they will like it whitelist, saying, hey, when this person logs in, all they get is get processed and get service. They can't do they can't do another. Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yep.
They can't run any execute role, they can't do anything else. That's also in regards to it. One of the questions I was asking there is we're thinking of in the future, my company is setting up a constrained input on every machine in the future. That way, especially machines in the remote environments where we think it may be compromised, we can use that constrained endpoint to kind of do some forensics without having to worry about possibly respreading whatever's going on or having that interact further with anything else. If you kind of dig into it, without giving ourselves the ability to have anything else that may run up in the process. I think Lee Holmes, one of the presenters, I bounced it off him because it's one way to they're doing something like that at Microsoft as well. So I give some confidence to pull that off the forward. Cool. Oh really? Oh yeah, through the ILO.
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's so much. Kind of still trying to process everything. Oh, you went to work?
Yeah. Then I came home.
Look at
I
you.
came home at 6. Work.
Dim sum was awesome. Yeah. So PowerShell Summit, if you are so they're already planning the European event, which will be in Amsterdam. I think it's going to be in September, but they talked about the 2015 summit will be in Charlotte this year or next time. So I don't know. I thought it was an amazing conference to go to if you're at all interested. I had been to Tech Ed. I had been to some other conferences, but this was by far and away it was 150 people focused on PowerShell, and a lot of it was, I think there was a good mix of PowerShell, pure PowerShell, and then there was also domain-specific applications of PowerShell, using it to monitor your servers, applications, websites. Using the managing VMware stuff with PowerShell. I'm trying to remember SQL. Yeah. So it wasn't just like, hey, let's talk about theory and concepts about PowerShell. It was actually like, these are peers and people in the field who are using it every day to get work done. So 150 people there, yeah.
Yeah, which would be really great also between like lunch breaks and everything. Usually they talk something weekly. And I mean, I'm just on the way over, so one day, like, I just have to walk the market and ask them if there's a big variable, if there's all the technologists walking there. Because it's a table of Jeffrey Stover during lunch, talking about some things and stuff. It was really nice. I could have been to, it was my first conference overall. Like what's next day to do like small events at VMware or like Microsoft has thrown, but I was like, just kind of thrown back by like I was almost like at some points I was kind of like I said I just want to hide the corner, so I would sit like I didn't want to as much as I love to talk to everybody there. I just almost felt like it's so intimate here. I was like I need to speak to everybody in a sense. So a lot of times I kind of just wanted to hide in the corner. Like if it was a larger event, I could and just be like, okay, I'm going to keep you guys. But saying everyone's there, it's like there's always someone to talk to or something. Like, who wanted to talk to your kids, but okay, we see what you're doing in general. It's an incredible fun.
Yeah, a lot of MVPs in PowerShell and other products there. Members from the PowerShell team presenting and also just hanging around. Like I think Jeffrey was there every day, checking out everybody's sessions and stuff. So you have an opportunity to sit down with people that are actually making the product, at lunch and just ask them whatever is on your mind or give them feedback about stuff.
Or complain about stuff.
Complain about stuff.
There's no lack of that. There's plenty of times where breakfast is fun.
Yeah.
Any of the conflicts you can really listen.
Yeah. So the one thing that was said, Charlotte in 2015 will probably sell out. They anticipate it to sell out. They're going to try to keep it small. I think that there's a value there in keeping it, not having it grow to be too big. So,
yeah, there was like no vendors. There was like one Sapien showed up and they were just really they were just, hey, we're Sapien, come we have free software for you guys, come stop by, let's talk, talk around it.
Yeah. So if you're
selfish, we're going to software.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But that was really nice. It was like besides them, and there was really no pressure situation. They were like outside of the room, like in the room. They weren't like besides you had to talk to them out. So that was the best part about it. No pressure, like sales pitch and stuff.
Yeah.
You said it was 1 day?
3 days.
2 days, yeah.
3 days, like it's like 3 courses in the morning, lunch, 4 courses in the afternoon, like 3 sessions each.
Yeah.
I think an hour.
Yeah, they had 3 tracks going, so 3 separate rooms, and then 3 sessions in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, 7 sessions. It's like all day PowerShell. So now that I'm sitting here, I'm just kind of like, that's what that picture on Twitter was. Fred Sanford.
So now
I'm just like, so.
That's how it felt work there. So I was asking questions like, I think we find this work today. I sort emails. Nothing.
Yeah. So anybody have anything that they want to bring up, or any scripts they're working on, or anything like that? Uh-huh.
And I'm looking at the number of, and I'm like, on my computer, it's empty. It's not. The computer is part of domain computer. So you go out there to the local administrator account, it's just interesting because if you get the computer and look at the number of, you just get curly braces, but then you add it on computer to some other group that's not a domain computer, and it shows up with that group. That one shouldn't default group. As long as it's the only, if that's the only group that's a member of it, it's all group of PowerShell. But I think it was just interesting that PowerShell won't enumerate that.
So you're piping it to get member, or get 80 group member?
It's what band member of, or even if I did aware,
Uh-huh.
I did it that way, just it wouldn't in any way. It's like interesting. And get AD user, same kind of thing. It's like the built-in system clues don't seem to. I wonder why it treats it that way, but that's what they treat it as the default. Yeah, I don't know what PowerShell
By the way, AD drops out.
it's like it appears to the GUI, you would think that everything that appears in the computer would appear there.
Well, I think if you look actually the actual AD attributes, you'll see it's actually not where you the exact same place you see in PowerShell. That would just probably see the PhillyPoSH as a combination of those fields.
Okay.
Just I would check what I would do is I would look for that computer, make sure you're showing the advanced portion of the active that these computers, and then go to the attributes and kind of drill down to those. You can sort them by ones that filled and not filled, and actually see if you're seeing the same sort of behavior or not.
And it also appears as like the distinguished name of the group. I was wondering if anybody had any experience parsing that stuff. Member of, parsing member of.
Yeah, I do a lot of like sorting on groups. I never had an issue where it's not pulling like the default system groups or anything else like that.
Because backwards switching is the first. There's split on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's somebody doing stuff like that.
So you're trying to. You're
So
trying
I
to.
get all the computers, they want me to get all the computers for 120 days. I haven't checked within the last 120 days and put them into a computer retired, except for servers and Mac OS and stuff like that. And I did a script too, it's tailored for our Windows XP system that we retired. We want to keep that separate. And the target of it is a little bit different. But like I said, when we decided, okay, the domain admins and I we're talking about this is that let's create a group called something like computers off site that we want to look for. Whatever you want to do, get this group. The computers number that group, we ignore this process of retiring. So we don't accidentally retire computers. They're just they may not have checked in because a user took it home with them or has it, off site somewhere. It's not regularly checking in. But if you're not regularly checking in, the computer sets its own password. Right. And that would actually be set.
It's been approved, it's still being approved. It's in approved, it's still being approved.
But it is.
So, yeah, I was curious. I'm not. I don't know that I'm following what he's saying. Do you use it?
I think, but I'm not sure why I have that big issue. Usually this time.
We have people who just making computers home. They don't need the integrator that doesn't reset it.
So you do get AD computer, DSC poll, get AD. What's the command like get AD member or get AD group?
You have to say, okay.
Did AD members?
Computer with a special group,
Yeah, AD.
If you want to see what group's a member of, it's
Member.
principal, I said get AD principal object, get AD principal, AD principal. Okay, yeah, and then the name, whatever you
Of a
trying to
group?
see. I'm trying to figure out.
Of a computer?
Yeah, that would say the computer.
Identity?
Yeah, it's computer name.
But one thing you can do is you can check the password.
See how user.
If you have expiration of 9 days. Well, we didn't run that one every halfway left is 120 days or older. So, the last login. But are you gonna be ready to yeah.
So those are built-in groups, right?
Yeah, I go to have a problem. I'm not sure what. So you're saying
that's log on date time? Yeah. That's something.
So you're saying what? How? So technically, like, since Legal has it up now, like, what exactly we're trying to do?
Okay, so if I try and look at member of, then any computer, it's empty if it's only a member of the domain computer.
So one group.
It just doesn't appear there. It's confused by that.
So you're saying member up.
So if you look at the member, if you get all your properties for
so this is like just a
standard computer, if you get all of its properties, you get them right on there.
yeah.
You get AD computer and that.
So probably then it's
Property star. Yeah.
So-
yeah, enumerate the properties of that computer, and yeah.
And you want me to do?
So member of.
you want to do probably dash properties and all.
Yeah,
I
you have
click
to
it
do
to
property.
get AD principal, right?
No,
I
you wanna
didn't
see-
do it that way. I just said get AD computer
Uh huh.
and that name,
Yeah.
and then slash properties star.
I'll get all the properties.
Yeah,
And then
and then
format
just yeah. Now look at member of.
them. Member
It's empty.
of. Where's member of?
It's empty.
Member of is an empty collection.
Yeah. But see how domain computers doesn't show up there?
But what you're saying, if you go to Active Directory and you
Yeah.
actually look at the attributes,
Yeah.
It's there.
well, no, so we haven't looked at the attributes. That is not the attribute. This is a collection. That's a collection of multiple things.
Yeah, advanced.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean I understood now what you were explaining earlier. I didn't miss that point then.
Yeah, that's what.
But there's no way to. Yeah.
That's why a lot of times when I'm looking for what I need to pull
Mhm.
in PowerShell, I'll always go to the attribute. I'll look at the attributes
Yeah.
and see exactly what matches that.
You really find it.
Yeah. So the pain is you have to actually find it in Active Directory.
Okay.
You have to actually look. You have to actually find it in the user group and then double click it. You try to find it and you'll never see the properties.
Okay.
Or what you can do is you can go member of, but double click the group and then double click the
So I gotta go to the stupid thing here.
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing.
That's what they said in one of the articles I was reading, something like what you're saying right now.
And then go to member.
And now I understand
Now
why.
you can see the attribute editor.
Yeah.
It's
Under attribute
right in the
editor
middle.
up above member of.
And then sort by name. You can see member
Yeah.
of.
Let's see.
It might be a different name then.
Actually, isn't that the group? It's not actually. Like,
Wait a minute. So
Yeah, I think you're right.
what is it called? Member of.
Mhm.
Member of. It is an AD management, AD property value collection.
Which is why I figured it would just show up.
So we have to trigger that to actually do the unraveling of the collection.
Okay.
I don't know. Interesting.
Member of. I tried that. Yeah, I saw something like what you're doing right now, Lito, and I didn't understand why they did just what you just did. There was an example just like that.
Can't spell it. Is that spelled right?
There was an example just like that on, I think it was in Wilson, and I don't understand why you had to do what you just did, the way you just did.
So wrapping it in parens on basically order of operations, right? So
Yeah.
we're asking AD, give me that object back,
Yeah.
and then we're using dot notation to say just show me that specific property
Right.
on the object.
Wondering why you have to put member of and then dot member of.
Oh, because by default the AD commandlets don't give you all the properties. They only give you this set.
Yeah, I
here.
knew that part. I guess I was just confused at the difference
Yeah.
between doing it one way and doing it the other.
And I
don't know.
I think this is like a.
Not sure if I'm being clear on that question. I understand what you just did, but I
Okay.
didn't understand why. That's a difficult question. I saw examples doing it that way, but I also, it seems like there's another way to do that same thing. Yeah, some people actually put member of in quotes as well.
Yeah.
There's another method.
But if you want to get the value of as a individual, get exactly what it's saying.
It's full of copies of that.
I had a problem with talking about that where they would check in somebody made the person could do. Yeah. Something's expired or something like that. I do have an opportunity. We had a lot of computers that check in and they still come back with them and it'll kind of concern and
Yeah. That's a whole other matter. Now it makes sense what you're saying.
I mean, we also had to revert systems with the indexing system and reverted it back 3 months later. So it's not a turnaround.
Yeah, it's just.
In that, I mean, in your case, it's probably just a matter of just combining those two fields. I think that's the function.
I was just
added to another group.
That's what I did, and it works fine. I was just curious
You
how
only
that
see-
all
you
worked
only
in
see
why
one.
more than anything else.
You only
That's
see the one that you added it to, not like the
Right,
default.
and I was just
membership.
curious why more than anything else. It's not like I need to see domain computers. I'm just kind of trying to figure out how this works.
So I
That's more my
think
question.
off the top of my head is you can never remove a person from the default group if that's the last group they're in. So that might be a protection method.
That's the next question I was gonna answer. What if you add it to a different group, remove it from domain computers?
Yeah, that actually would prove that fact or not.
So I just added it to a folder
Well,
access
just
group.
add it to, add it, no, just
I just meant for
add it there,
text.
like add it to a new group, set that as the primary group, and then see what shows up in the list. Because more likely it's probably that's a read only, but that's probably like,
You're
It
gonna
is,
have
it's
to do that
read
as a-
yeah, it's probably something you can't
It is
change.
read only.
What you said.
You're gonna have to do it as a domain admin. Because we had people that we took them out of domain users because several of our sites are.
No, we wouldn't take them out, we just added
had,
a
like
group.
made domain users have access to data.
Mhm.
And we're like, we don't want these people having access, so we added another group, made that default and removed domain users. But domain admin had to be.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't
My
do
own
that.
question at this point, I'm just trying to understand the mechanics of this, and the mechanics of exposing this particular attribute. Not, I don't need to expose domain computers. Just when I saw it, it was a curiosity.
Well, yeah, I think we collectively figured it out. It's the fact
Yeah.
that that's the one, you always have to be a member of the default group.
Yeah. So it just assumes that.
And that, I'm assuming that one of the areas that protects it, so you're never not in a default group.
Yeah.
So that's why you're seeing it in two separate sections.
It's kind of funny that PowerShell wouldn't list it.
I mean, it is listing it.
It came up with just the curly braces. It doesn't show.
Well, no, I mean, it's not listing the way that Active Directory users computers, it was designed to present it, but it's listed the way AD is presenting it. Like the actual AD schema, that's the way the AD schema presents it. But the Active Directory users computers, it's doing it in a programmatic way for someone in the GUI to see, okay, here's all my groups.
All right.
But once you look at the actual AD attributes and that's what they show, that's exactly how AD is presenting it.
So remove it from set that as
Yeah.
a primary group.
No problem. Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.